Welcome back. So let's dive in deep into the papers, and there's a potpourri, and I'm spoiled for choice this morning. But of course, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, our public affairs analyst, joins us on the program. Good morning, Mr. Akintobi. It's a Monday, yes, and you look prepared. It's good to see you again.
And you too. Good morning, Kayode. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, let's start the way we started. Yes. And Vanguard joins us on that one this morning with, a walk down memory lane. Hashtag EndSARS at 5. That's the Vanguard for you this morning. Memories, matters, unfinished struggle for justice. And we see some, insights there. Why accountability remains elusive. Politics of forgetting, Mr. Akintobi, by Nanre Namfiska, member, hashtag EndSARS United. But what caught me is politics of forgetting. And, one can't help but remind the elected that EndSARS is much more than, a symbol of youthful struggle in Nigeria, but a message for the elected. What are your thoughts, Mr. Akintobi?
Well, as Nigerians, we have notoriously short memories. And when things like this happen and the fervor has kind of bubbled over, we have a tendency to revert to status quo and generally forget the horrors of what befell us, because 5 years down the road, I can't say there's been much reform or change to the issues that precipitated EndSARS. Like you said, yes, the catalyst was this issue of police brutality, but it spoke to a wider range of social issues, social and economic issues, injustice, inequality, marginalization, unemployment, poverty. There were many things wrapped into the EndSARS protest, and it was galvanized by Gen Z, the youth, quote unquote. And you look around the world today, and you see what Gen Z is doing to express discontent. So Nigeria is not alone in this aspect of a feeling of dissatisfaction with the status quo, especially in terms of how government relates to its people. And you look at Madagascar, you look at Nepal, you look at some of the recent things. 5 years ago, we already were where Nepal and Madagascar are just getting to today. But my question is, what have we built on in those 5 years from what happened on October 20, 2020? What reforms, what changes, what progress has been made for all the issues, even just the pivotal issue, the aspect of police brutality, the aspect, those things are still unresolved till today. Even some of the investigations of EndSARS, the panels that were set up across the country, many of them up to today, their conclusions have not been fully vetted or fully explained to people's satisfaction. As far as I know, there are even some people still in prison who were arrested on that day. There are still some contention about who died, who didn't die. I remember that the Lagos Tribunal concluded that a massacre occurred in Lagos, but there's never been an admission from the authorities. There's never been accountability. So I asked myself, what did we really gain from the protests? And you look at, Kayode mentioned the conflation of today's protest, and I don't think it was a coincidence that it was chosen for this day. I think Showore specifically timed it for this day to kind of create a remembrance in our minds, which is why you're talking about forgetfulness, to remind us of the horrors of 2020 and to let us know that those issues still exist. If 5 years later, we're still trying to protest against a perceived injustice and police is still saying you can't go here, you can't go here, you can't go here, we're not saying police, apart from the fact that the right to protest is a universal civil and human right, police are supposed to protect us when we go out to air our grievances. They're supposed to be there to maintain law and order, to stop it from being hijacked by miscreants, which is basically what really messed up the EndSARS protest. Was it got hijacked to where a lot of mayhem was unleashed on society, on people, on innocents. Work was disrupted. All kinds of things happened that the police could have and should have prevented. So I see today, for example, as an exemplar of the fact that there's not been that much reform, whether through the judiciary, whether through the police itself, the law enforcement agencies, or even from the executive. All arms of government are culpable in the fact that we're still where we were 5 years ago. I can't point to any progress that's been made in terms of the issues we protested against back then.
A good way of, helping us not to forget. Kayode.
Let's take a look at how the Guardian newspaper is reporting the stories for today and over the weekend. The Guardian leads with food, actually. You see, farmers in limbo as bureaucracy stalls 50 billion naira tractor rollout. So it's more agriculture, which leads to food, of course, and jobs. And there are pictures of tractors on the front page. So this 50 billion naira tractor rollout had been announced. I think the president made an announcement at some point. But it looks like these tractors are still awaiting distribution at the National Agricultural Seed Council along Abuja-Lokoja Road. And those are the pictures you see on the front page. So it's quite ironic because hunger does not wait. Joblessness does not wait for bureaucracy. It just strikes as it is right now. I don't know. Can there be any explanation for this?
Well, I remember when the rollout of the tractors was announced. There was a lot of hoopla, a lot of media attention. The president and I think a foreign partner who was responsible for procurement, they came, they cut the ribbons. Nigerians were all elated, believing that, okay, this is the beginning of the end of our woes in terms of food. If we have so many tractors that's going to be distributed to farmers, whether they're paying for them instrumentally or something, but at least it will enhance our agricultural capability. It will enhance our ability to produce more food. Off-takers can have more to distribute. In all ramifications, it was a good thing. But here now is drowning in bureaucratic red tape, which has always been a problem of government, and it's not unique to Nigerian government alone. This thing called administrative malaise that infiltrates into the DNA of the civil service, whether it is corruption-based, whether it is inefficiency. I don't see how you can have tractors sitting down in a field rotting when farmers all across the country need these implements to be able to be more efficient in their food production and be able to. We're here crying about hunger, poverty, starvation, inflation. And I remember just last week the government released inflation figures, which it said had dropped. And I talked to people on the street and they say things are still expensive. But government is saying inflation has dropped, GDP is up, but we still can't make ends meet with what we have in our pocket. Where is the disconnect? And I was trying to explain to somebody, do you understand what inflation really is? Inflation simply is the rate at which things are increasing in price. So if it costs you 100 naira today for maybe one plantain, and next week it costs you 150, the inflation rate is 50%. If the following week it now costs you 175 naira, the inflation rate has dropped from 150 to 25%. But the cost of the good has still gone up. People don't understand that. When you hear inflation is dropping, people assume the price is going down. All reduction in inflation says is that it is not increasing in price as fast as it was the last time we checked. It's only when you get to zero increase in price that you have deflation. I don't think we've had deflation in our in our lexicon,
economic lexicon.
No, in our economic lexicon in the whole advent of democracy since 1999. So things that could actually help prices to moderate and reduce, like tractors for farmers, fertilizers for farmers, irrigation. Water is a big problem, yet you need water to farm. So we're talking about how do you put irrigation in areas that are arid, much of the north. is desert-like. Water is a problem. So these are the things that are within government's purview, within government's capability. But when you see the inefficiency that lets tractors be rotting away, you ask, what are the chances of us really turning this economic thing around? What are the chances?
And questions that we must keep asking.
Yes.
At least we've moved from having just 10 tractors, or is it 50 tractors throughout Nigeria, to having an abundance. Yet the abundance hasn't got to the farmers.
You know, they're waiting for a sharing formula. They need to get a formula to actually... No, true story. They're trying to figure out the sharing formula according to sources, and they say that it's either you purchase it outrightly, lease it, and all of that. But the point is, it's about 4 months.
Yes.
Since that launch.
This is always the problem with affirmative action, is when you start trying to see how do we share this thing and still create some kind of equitable balance. It ends up just regressing your progress.
All right, we hope that the sharing formula is sorted as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Let's head over to the New Telegraph now, which focuses on politics and politics of the opposition party. Convention, PDP crisis deepens as Anyanwu alleges forgery, petitions DSS, INEC, police, and we have 2 riders there. We're behind Makinde PDP, that's ascribed to former LG party chairman. Curtain falls on PDP in Southeast, and defecting governors, legislators can't stop your defeat. ADC tells APC. I wonder where ADC is speaking from, because I see no political structure yet, and we haven't even seen the former presidential candidate of the PDP joining the ADC formally at this time that we speak. But you know, what do they call it now? The grave of the PDP appears to be getting deeper and deeper with new dimensions of the crisis. But they appear unruffled, Mr. Akitobi.
The PDP, for all intents and purposes, seems to be a sinking ship, and I'm not sure that it can be saved the way things are going. The nucleus of the party is so fractured that to resurrect it, or it's on life support, and to bring it back seems to be an onerous task that I'm not sure anybody can do. You look at this issue of the convention. Basically, it's just 2 power blocks within the party struggling among themselves for who is going to run the party, who's going to be in charge. I think Governor Wike is on one side, I think Governor Makinde is on another side, and people have lined up behind each of them, and they're warring with each other. The latest what came over the weekend was the issue of this convention. This convention planned for November in Oyo State is supposed to be a make or break. That's where they're going to have the elections for all their, because even their current exco, they're all acting. The current chairman of the party is an acting chairman. I've heard that he wants to become substantive chairman, and that all the moves he's making, Subterranean and others, are just so that he can become confirmed as the substantive chairman of the party. Now, the issue is this. Some of those who are opposing the Damagum group are saying that the state congresses, the ward congresses in some parts of the country were not properly held, and that they need to be done over again. Why are the congresses important? The congresses are important because that is where the delegates are going to be elected or appointed for the convention. And those are the people who at the convention will vote for who becomes the national chairman and other members of the EXCO. So there's been some subterfuge going on. Signatures are being signed on letters that are being disavowed. The national secretary saying, I didn't sign this thing, that was sent to INEC talking about the convention in Oyo. That's because, of course, he's one of those who's saying the convention must not hold unless those congresses are redone. So it is a mess. You used the word earlier, potpourri. I love that word. It is a potpourri of mayhem and mess, a mess of porridge in the PDP as we speak. And only God can help them with that party. You see the defections. I read yesterday that one gentleman named Dudafa, I think he was President Jonathan's aide, he has left the PDP, declared for the APC. So it's not just governors. It's like rats are fleeing a sinking ship because they see that this thing is going down and we don't want to go down with it. So there's a mass exodus out of the party. PDP diehards like Chief Bode George, people like Sheyi Makinde are saying, we're not going anywhere, we're staying with this and we're going to right this ship. But you look at it and you see all of the things happening, and you wonder, is it not over for the PDP, who just a mere 22 years ago was calling itself the largest party in Africa, and it would rule for 60 years? So maybe sometimes arrogance seems to create a fall in people. Maybe they got too arrogant in believing in their own supremacy, their invincibility, and the fact that they were omniscient, omnipresent, and it's just come back to bite them in the behind, really. And I wish PDP all the best, because I do agree that we need a formidable opposition. And as you said, the ADC hasn't actually completely structured itself yet to be able to stand up as a proper opposition. We have various aspects of the ADC speaking here and there, but there's no corporate message or corporate value statement from the ADC that makes us be able to take them as a proper opposition. So I really hope the PDP can restructure itself, get its act together, because they still have 8 governors. They still have members of the House of Reps. They still have senators. So for now, they're still the most viable opposition, which is critical for democracy.
Well, even those in coma can still come back to life.
Absolutely. Right? That's why I said life support. It doesn't mean it's dead yet.
Okay, I see what's going on here. I see. Well, it's very interesting in the case of the PDP. You look at the ADC, yes, right, and you expect, because ADC had said some people were coming into its fold.
Yes.
They were quite bullish that, expect the big fish. I'm not sure what term, I don't know if it was big fish or the heavyweights. One of the terms was used, but at this moment, what we're seeing is the emptying of the PDP, yes, into the other parties. Even as you mentioned, the former vice president is almost like he's in a political wilderness now. He's left Egypt, but he hasn't gotten to the promised land just yet. So it's the promised land, the ADC or wherever it is. Sheyi Makinde is really not a diehard PDP person, because he was an AMPP, went to PDP, went to SDP, then PDP. So I'm sure we must commend him, I must say, for actually staying with the PDP at this time, because he's not one of those that were in the PDP and stayed all the way. He left at some point when he didn't get a ticket.
Yes, indeed.
But it's just very interesting, the PDP. We can talk about PDP all the way, but let's go to Abuja. The Abuja Inquirer is next, and the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest is how the Abuja Inquirer leads. You see Abuja braces for showdown. I had mentioned earlier on that the American embassy issued a notice to citizens that they should avoid some places. Yes. There's been a court order that says, yes, you can protest, but avoid these areas, right? So you see heavy security deployment, civil servants face transportation chaos. On October the 20th, Mr. Akintobi has spoken to that maybe that is deliberate to leverage the day. But let me just reiterate the story that trended last week. FG, maths, English remain compulsory for all-level students. Is this a downer for those who had said, oh, well, I don't need math again for arts?
Well, for me, what I got out of that was the fact that our current administration has a penchant for releasing policies and then coming back to clarify, which creates massive confusion. Last week, the same director in the Ministry of Education came out and said, you no longer need math and English. And everybody was rejoicing that if you are not...
Or math for arts.
Yeah. If you don't need math for arts. And everybody was rejoicing. Same lady came out a few days ago and said, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say you don't have to take it. I just said you don't have to have a credit in it, but you still have to take math. And when I saw the thing come out initially, I thought, where is the reasoning of our educators?
But isn't it the same thing, really? You can sit for the exam.
Yes.
But you don't have to put all your effort in it, because we don't need you to get a credit in it, unlike English and other relevant courses. So isn't it the same thing, just implied?
Well, here's the thing. If you don't have to take it in the exam, then you needn't have gone through it in school. And going through it in school helps your reasoning ability, helps your critical thinking faculties. So it's important for you to have to take it, because, again, if it's not a requirement to take it, you don't have to take it in school. You can bypass it and take other subjects. But math is totally critical for your intellectual ability, because it helps you to reason. So I understand that aspect of you have to take it, because during your period of instruction, you've gained something for the years you were in primary and secondary school taking math, even if you didn't pass. Bottom line is, examinations may not be a true barometer of capability, because some people get nervous, some people, get anxious, can't study for various reasons. But as long as the key elements of instruction have served your purpose in terms of your reasoning capability, then even if you don't pass the exam, you've still matured and developed in critical thinking. So I'm happier that they've clarified, but I'm horrified that here's another policy that they didn't get right in the first instance. Look at, we were still arguing or debating this issue of the pardon list. They've now come back after and said, we're reviewing that. Now there's this WAEC math. They've come back, we're reviewing that. Why don't we get it right before we announce? Why don't we do all of the due diligence and make sure that it is an ironclad, well thought out policy, as opposed to just something spontaneous, a knee-jerk reaction, we put it out there, then we have to recall it. I think this administration's communication apparatus needs to do better.
Absolutely. Well, I wish that, the policy came through some 20-something years ago.
So maths was not your strong point.
It wasn't my strong point at all. So let's head over to this Nigerian newspaper that focuses even on education yet again. But NELFund is the subject this time. NELFund Varsities Exploit Loan Scheme hike school fees. It's as if we can't talk enough about this. Experts warn of policy sabotage, urge the government to tie eligibility to fee transparency. And we had this conversation with the MD of NELFund just last week, and we spoke about the concern that universities are taking advantage of this season of funds availability to the students to increase school fees. Well, there was a promise to look into it, but it wasn't quite clear cut. So is it a foregone conclusion that we have entered this era of hiking school fees as a result of the NELFund loan scheme? And again, it's as if what you just talked about is coming through. Did the government think this through, all of the ramifications, the implications that could come through as a result of the loan before it went ahead? Shouldn't there have been checks? Because I'm thinking about students who, are unable to afford school fees, they are struggling, but do not want the burden of getting a loan. Mr. Akitobi.
Yes, this NELFund program, as laudable as it is, and I personally know the chairman of the fund, and we've been in discussions about quite a bit in terms of the intent and the objective and the implementation. And as good an initiative as it is, it seems there's a concerted effort to scuttle it or to diminish its essence, because you look at how can a university administration just willy-nilly increase fees so that they can corner a portion of the allocation or the loan to each student? I was always already concerned about the fact that there's a burden of repayment. And I worried if the government itself had really looked at that very well, because some of the youngsters I've talked to are looking at this thing as more of a grant than a loan. They're not thinking that far ahead in terms of, when I have to pay this money back sometime. Even if I'm not employed immediately after university, down the road, there's still an obligation to repay. Many of them are not aware of that. They're looking at it as free money. So I already had that concern that, has there been enough enlightenment to the understanding of the individual student? And when you now see, it always comes back down to the civil service. There is always a civil service. When you dig deep enough into any problem in terms of government policies, always the civil service. It's never the political appointees, because they come and they go. The government is run by the civil servants, and they are usually always a problem. So now you see this where universities have seen an opportunity. Okay, students are being given this money. We can get a part of it. However, the point is, if they increase their fees and take part of it out of NELFund, then the student is still left hanging, because the loan you've now borrowed has not covered your fees. but yet you still also already owe the government. So who do we lay the blame on, or who can correct this? Is it the National Universities Commission? Is it the EFCC? Who? Is it the Ministry of Education? Bottom line is, it's a laudable goal. It's a laudable initiative. It's a good thing to assist. And I look at the staggering numbers of how much they put out already, how many students have received the loan, how many may not have been able to go to school that are now in school, and it is helping. So what we need to do is support that program and not allow anything that will scuttle it. So why would the universities? In fact, at this time, what the universities should be doing is trying to see how they reduce the fees to make it even easier on the students. I believe the universities are not revenue generating. They have a first line charge in the Ministry of Education budget, so they are funded. But many of them do internally generated revenue to cover costs of diesel and costs of this and cost of that. So you see them running businesses. They produce water. They have printing presses. They have little things to generate IGR to increase their subvention, so that they can manage the affairs of the university better. But the Students' Loan Fund should not be a means of revenue generation for the universities, and I don't know who will make them stop doing that.
And particularly if we haven't quite recorded that significant number in enrollment of students in the universities, because that was the goal.
Absolutely.
To ensure that, you know, the people at the lower rung of the ladder are able to send their children to school as a result of NEL Fund. But we haven't quite got there.
I'd like to know
yet.
The numbers in terms of how many new entrants versus how many already enrolled are borrowing money. So if the goal is to help more people go to school, we should have more people coming in that are borrowing than those who are already in. Because you find at 200, 300 level, they are also eligible to borrow money. So I'd like to interrogate that and see, is it helping to bring more people into the system?
Well, according to the fund, about 538,000 applicants have actually, you know, sailed through that process and secured loans, but that's as against a population of nearly 2 million. So we'll keep looking at the numbers, because it's a continuing test for the scheme. And a fine place to anchor. We must thank you very much, Mr. Akitobi, for always coming through with your profound insights to the day's big stories. Thank you so much for your time.
That's very high praise. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Mr. Dayo Akitobi is a very dependable public affairs analyst. We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll begin the very first leg of our conversation on your perfect morning starter, the morning brief, right here on Channels Television. Stay with us. We'll be right back.